Hey, Kilted Warrior here. Hope you're having a great day. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoy the content and stick around to the end if you want to find out what the next lore video will be about. Otherwise, let's begin. The Elder Scrolls, fragments of creation. They have foretold the future, the coming of heroes who define the ages. They foresee calamity, millennia in the making. They have a story to tell of the multitude of actions of gods and mortals alike. To understand Tamriel, Mundus, we need to journey through the ages and tell the story of the Elder Scrolls. Ysgramor, the Harbinger of the Nordic people. The Companions have a long and storied history that helped define the history of Skyrim. To understand the legacy of the heroes of the Companions, as well as their ideals, principles, it is paramount to understand its founder, Ysgramor. And in doing so, we can get insight not only into the legendary band of warriors, but also lay the groundwork for understanding Skyrim's history and that of the Sky Children. Ysgramor, one of the last Atmoran kings, of which there were several still ruling petty kingdoms in Atmora, as the long summers of old were becoming rarer in Atmora in the late Merethic era. Nobody knows for certain what happened in Atmora during this period. Climate change, scarcity of resources, overworldly threats. What is certain is an Atmoran king called Ysgramor sought to begin colonization of the mainland of Tamriel for the future of his people, as the Merethic of that era was said to be warmer than the Skyrim we know in later eras. With the colonization and the building of Saarfall, Ysgramor's name might have faded as a notable but forgettable king that ruled a small community taking its first cautious steps on Tamriel, and the Companions would never have been formed. Yet fate had other plans for the Atmoran, as the farmer would attack and destroy Saarfall in that most brutal of nights. The world would then see the man he was, as there are two Ysgramors that took form that night, Ysgramor the historian and Ysgramor the warrior. Both were harbinger of Atmora and the rise of the Nordic people, for during his imprisonment by the farmer with his sons, as the only survivors of the Night of Tears, he would learn their language, take its principles to create a written Atmoran Nordic language that would record the deeds to come and would outwit the elves, for he had the fox's cunning, Shore's cunning, and the fury of kine, and the strength of the Atmora of old behind him. I had beheld during my captivity that the wily elves possessed much learning and knowledge, though they put it to ends both vile and dishonourable, and I have bethought me that to defeat the elves and scour them from the land, it would be well if men also did wield such wisdom. With wisdom, wit, and his axe Wulfrad, forged by his own son Ingol, with his own tears, Wulfrad storms tears, for he was the champion of Kine and Shore, and he was the coming storm, born of the tears of loss that would conquer the lands of Skyrim for Kine's Sky Children. A new home, the return, Ysgramor's legend, the great song of Skyrim, was about to begin. The Songs of the Return. Origins of Skyrim and Companions. Our great lord Ysgramor, the harbinger of us all, did then send forth his two beloved sons, with him the only other survivors of the brutalities of Saarfall, to seek out the bravest warriors of the land and mount the great return. The late Malefic era in the snow-covered land that the Atmorans called Merith. The human settlement of Sarfall, believed to be the first of its kind in Skyrim, was attacked and sacked by the Falmer, the Snow Elves, in what would become known as the Night of Tears, the Crying Night. The only survivors being an Atmoran king named Ysgramor and his 2 sons, with rumours of a 4th survivor, all making their way back to Atmora. Unknown to the Falmer, who had just perpetrated the dishonourable act, they had just triggered a series of events that would define not just Skyrim's history, but the history of humanity, as it would be the first event marking the end of the Malefic era and the time of Elves, and the beginning of the first era, the rise of humanity. For Ysgramor would return, with a fleet and the 500 companions at his back, and despite the many trials and personal tragedy, he would lead them to drive out the Falmer and establish the first human kingdom within Skyrim, becoming the legendary first king of Skyrim, while his friend and companion, Jeek of the River, would found Whiterun. And from the crew of his ship, the Jorvaskr, would build that most proud hall in the shadow of the Skyforge, founding the Companions of Whiterun, sibling to the Fallowstone Hall of the Rift. The decline of Elves had begun, and the Companions would rise. The songs of the return are eternal and numerous. For those first 500 companions, those companions of Ysgramor, who cleared the way for mankind's rightful habitation, burned with a fire not seen since those days long past. Each ship carried a crew that performed legendary feats that could feed the pride of any nation for 1,000 years. And during this time of broadening, scores of companions wandered the land, bringing the light of the proper gods to the heathen land of elves and beasts. They were but mortal, though, and in time, all would taste the glories of Sovngarde. The Song of Fallowstone and the Giantslayer. Vigord One Ear, long Gorilda's first mate, but now captain, gazed upon the hills rising about them, and the valleys at their feet. This was the land he could love, where his people could prosper and grow. He decreed the crew's wandering at an end, and caused a great hall to be built upon the battle site. Throughout the eras and many centuries that passed, the heirs of Ysgramor faced many challenges, as was the case for those in the Rift, based out of Fallowstone Hall, which was founded by the captain of the Fallowfire, after the previous captain, Gorilda, known for her courage, perished in a great battle against the elves during the time of the return, with one Vigord One Ear taking command and founding the Fallowstone Hall on the site of that bloody victory of the companions upon the rocky hilltop to honour his fallen comrades. At last Sinmur was brought to bay. Ysgramor, harbinger of us all, boldly led the remaining companions into the final battle. Many a brave companion had already fallen to the giants. Stalwart Valdur and sly Hakra, long may their spirits be honoured, fell assaulting the wily half-giant. A song of death and delight keened from Wulfrad as Ysgramor buried it deep into the giant-kin's skull. A splatter of gore and a death rattle came from Sinmur as Ysgramor gave a victory yell. In the second era, during the event known as the Plane Meld, the Companions of the Rift, now led by Vigord Wraithbane, would face a challenge both new and old, with the return of the giant Sinmur and the scheming of Manamarco's worm cult. The cult attacked and sacked the Fallowstone Hall, which had been the resting place of Wulfrad, Ysgramor's sacred axe, said to be forged from his own tears following the destruction of Sarfall. At the same time, the cultists unshackled the spirit of Sinmur, giant or half-giant, once a great foe of Ysgramor, which he slayed with Wulfrad. With Sinmur free and Wulfrad stolen, companions, with the aid of the hero of prophecy and Jordon Skald King, searched for Wulfrad, but it was shattered and then scattered as the necromancers attempted to use its power to strengthen Sinmur, as well as trying to bind the souls of Ysgramor's own ancient companions, Hakra and Valdur. Yet despite being interrupted, the giant was freed, his soul merged with a worm cult leader, and walked the land once more, leading to the attack on Riften. Yet with the ancient companions freed, and the fragments of Wulfrad being found, Jordon and the hero of prophecy, as well as the companions under Vigrod, would make an assault on Trollhättan, and with the power of Wulfrad's fragments, was able to destroy both Ysgramor's ancient foe and the new foe, as the spirits of Ysgramor and his companions watched on with pride. The Song of Blood and the Coming of the Dragon. This first of many, this crew of Jorvaskr, heathens and ancestors to us all, feared no stories or gods. Indeed, if there was something the elves feared, they would have it for their own. Thus began the labours once more of Menro and Manwi, whose eager hands again laid to Atmoran wood, which had borne them across the sea, and what was their ship became their shelter, as this valley became their purview till the end of all their days. Thus began the building of the great city, circled by the running of the White River, as brought forth by these beloved of Ysgramor, yet but 22 of the glorious 500 companions. Just as the companions faced trials in the Rift in the Second Era, the companions based out of Jorvaskr, founded by Jeek of the River, faced their own crisis that would carry a legacy until its resolution in the Fourth Era. In the Second Era, with a group of companions usurping what they saw as the corruption from within the companions in Whiterun, Cerneal Longnose led the usurpation and had a secret pact with the Glenmoral Coven, and henceforth a different kind of corruption infected the once proud warriors as the new circle, then under Harbinger Turfig, founded what was to become a cabal of lycanthropes, and the primal ways of Hircine, the Blood Hunt, his blessing, disguised as honour through blood by the Harbingers for generations to come. Yet in the year 201 of the Fourth Era, Harbinger Codlac Whitemane, who had already been convinced that the curse of the blood must be purged if the honoured warriors were to reach Sovngarde and regain the blessing of Kine and Shore. His actions, it seemed, had not gone unnoticed by the gods, with his dreams of an unknown warrior calling to him. That year, the Dragonborn would enter the halls of Jorvaskr, seeking to fight with the honoured warriors. Proving themselves quickly, Codlac Whitemane became convinced that this was his successor, who would help him end the curse upon the companions. Yet it seemed too late, as the consequences of the curse caught up with the circle, as Jorvaskr was attacked by a group of werewolf hunters, the Silver Hand, who found and then killed Codlac Whitemane, and seemingly damning his soul to Hircine's hunting grounds. Yet on his request, the Dragonborn had already cleansed the Glenmoral Coven from Skyrim, and with the fellow members of the now diminished circle, agreed to honour his memory and seek the wisdom of Ysgramor with the newly reforged Wulfrad, and there the Dragonborn heir to Ysgramor's legacy led the circle to the great hero's sacred tomb, and there they would free Kodlak's soul and start the process of freeing all the companions of those in Sovngarde planning to assault the hunting grounds itself to purge their history of the great sacrilege against Shor and Kine. In the end, as the Dragonborn continued their journeys, leaving Jorrvaskr for good, only one of the Beastblood remained, Aela. Yet despite this, it was clear honor had returned to Jorrvaskr after many years. The true heirs of Atmora. Tough lands breed tougher people, and Atmora was no different. So did the legacy of its natural-born heroes, whose spirits would drive the heroes of later generations, all leaving their mark on the companions as true heirs of Atmora. Ysgramor, by the blood of Atmora, first of the Harbingers, the bringer of words, first High King of Skyrim, Harbinger of us all. Ingol, a song of pride and sorrow, eldest son of Ysgramor, forged mighty Wulfrad from his tears, was a victim of the storm of separation. Jeek of the River, protect and serve, founded Whiterun, and Jorrvaskr, his ship which he captained, sought to serve Whiterun, protect Skyrim from all dangers. The hero of prophecy, restoring what was lost, returned Wulfrad to its rightful place among the companions, and slew Sinmur once more. Hakra and Valdur, death is not the end of duty. Protectors of the Rift, the seal of Sinmur, assisted the hero of prophecy in the defeat of Sinmur, and finally were granted entry to Sovngarde, their duty fulfilled. Kirnil Longnose, the way to oblivion is paved with good intentions. Overthrew the corrupt companions in Whiterun during the Second Era, created the Circle of Companions, just as Ysgramor had once trusted his circle of captains. Successor was Turfig, who would lead the companions down the path of lycanthropy permanently. Kodlak Whitemane, the call of the Great Hall, sought to end the curse of the blood, elevated the last Dragonborn to complete his mission to free the companions of Hircine's corruption. The last Dragonborn, the dragon cleanses all. The first dragon-blooded Harbinger, honoured Kodlak and the Harbingers of old by ending the curse that had tainted the warriors for so long and granting Kodlak's soul the honour of Sovngarde. The legacy of Ysgramor and the future. And so the song of the mighty heroes of the Companions ends, with Ysgramor and his heirs reshaping Tamriel forever through Norvin's steel and the spirit of Shor. Yet as one tale ends, another begins, and the song of Skyrim has only just begun. Next time, we shall track the peerless hunter, Hircine, whose influence can be felt in Skyrim and beyond, as the father of man-beasts beckons us to join his hunt. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe if you did in fact enjoy it, and click that alarm bell if you want to know when the next episode will release. Otherwise, stay safe and have a great day.